Hi, everybody, and welcome to the webinar Paint, Pencil, and Ink, Creating a Plan for Self-Care with me, Amy Williams, with Amy Williams Academy. I'm so happy and honored that you chose to join us today. I recommend from the very beginning that you find a comfortable spot, that you have a beverage close by, maybe some snacks, and your favorite art supplies, because today will be art experience heavy. So know that the recording of this webinar is going to be shorter than the amount of time that you'll receive credit, because I've woven in the time that it's going to take you to do the pause, the art experience, the reflections, and all of the writing that I invite you to do in the accompanying workbook. So you've got your snacks, you've got your water. Let's see, do you have your workbook close by? Make sure you have that on a device where you can take notes directly on that. Or if you wanted to print it out and put, write it in your own handwriting with your favorite pen, you can do that as you wish, your choice. But now that you have everything close by, let's get started. So I wanted to tell you to begin this story with a story of an epic fail. And that's a fail that I did as a leader of a school here in Portland, Oregon. It was Employee Appreciation Week. And, all the things that can come with that, and all the things that typically come with that you might expect, like a special lunch that comes in, or breakfast, bagels, coffee, that kind of thing. And yeah, there was a time where I thought, me alongside with the leadership team, thought that we were letting staff know that we appreciated them, right? So we did the things like coffee in the morning, we had bagels brought in, pizza on Fridays, and many things that were like that. Water bottles. We did juices one day where people gave me their menu items they could choose. Do they want carrot and beet juice, or do they want just straight up, spinach and greens or whatever? So I did all that, and we did that together. And it turns out afterwards, the what I we thought that the morale would kind of boost, people would feel appreciated. And then when we met with folks afterwards, like we were, usually would do on as frequently as we could, it turned out that it wasn't really their currency. And they were like, well, thanks, that was great. But it kind of fell flat. And I got to tell you, I was really bummed, because I was super excited about ordering pizza, and I was excited about picking up the coffee. And yes, while those things are great, we missed the mark, right? So this is not to say don't do Employee Appreciation Week. Absolutely. And let us remember, how could we do that as school leaders? If you're a school leader here, how can you do something in the way that your team receives appreciation? How could you do that more regularly, right? How can you create an environment where gratitude runs abundant, and the extra coffee cups and the things shaped like apples, which don't carry as much meaning, we could put that aside and do something that's more meaningful, right? So if you're a school leader, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind as you're joining us for this webinar today. And if you are a teacher, support staff, or any other person who works in education in whatever kind of role, what is your currency? What feels good? What feels like, I feel appreciated. I'm experiencing receiving gratitude from somebody else, right? And how do you let other people know, right? What does support look like? What does appreciation look like? So, as we go along today, there'll be times to pause and do your painting or your drawing. There's collage involved today. Know that there'll be time to pause, go get your stuff, and come on back. So don't worry if you don't have everything with you right now, besides your workbook book and something to drink and maybe a snack. Okay. But I tell you that story to let you know that it felt like an epic fail, like we had missed the mark. And it was time for us as school leaders to do a little more communicating, a lot more communicating, to find out what it was that would be meaningful. right? So maybe you've had a fail like that too, and you think, oh well, I'm taking care, I'm supporting, I'm offering gratitude, and are you doing it in a way that is best received, most easily received? So that's one way to look at it. And another way to look at today's class is the idea of self-care and self-compassion. So we'll talk a little bit about how those are interrelated and how do you do for yourself, not for your team, but for yourself, to care for yourself and to be compassionate for yourself where you believe that you deserve that, right? It's a requirement that we take care of ourselves so that we can be in it for the long run, right? And we've heard that 100 times, haven't we? So let's dive into it. Let's dive into it today. So, hi, everybody. I'm Amy Williams with Amy Williams Academy. I'm a teacher trainer, a family consultant, and coach. And the goal in the work that I do is to help educators and families, the important adults in the lives of children, learn how to be to show up in the best way possible in the lives of children that you love. Are you kind? Are you compassionate? Are you respectful? What is it that you want to be in the lives of children that you love? And my goal is to help assist you to become the type of person that you want to be in the lives of children. So that's my background as a dance therapist and an expressive arts therapist, but know that today is not a therapy class session, right? It's art experiences for sure, because it's me. So we're going to do that kind of stuff together. And know that when you dive into an arts experience from a suggested prompt, you will have feelings that come up, right? So if that happens, who are your people that you could reach out to? Or do you have colleagues or work friends or outside of work friends that you can talk to about that and kind of work through it, where you're not having to do that all by yourself, right? So with that being said, let's keep going. Okay, so here is our agenda for today. So we'll talk a little bit about what do educators really want? It's not another professional development on self-care. I hear that a lot. So I'll give you some insight about what I'm hearing as a coach from folks, right? Then we'll talk about, well, what do you do now? Okay, groovy for yourself. And, if you're looking at it if you're taking this from a leadership perspective, what do you do for your team now? Then we'll have some time to paint. We're going to draw. We're going to make some sort of collage, and we will write bonus extra credit if we can get to the point of movement, right? If you dare, if you're feeling bold and brave, if you're feeling vulnerable and courageous, which a mentor of mine, Marley Williams, calls being vulnerageous, we're going to do that thing. So hope you're in something comfy. Then there'll be time to do some final reflections, set a goal, connect with and write down who are you going to tell about your goal, so you can be held accountable and hold yourself accountable for those goals. And then some final thoughts as we wrap up this webinar today. All right. So it is true that teachers are beyond the stress level. They're beyond stressed. Self-care isn't optional. It's required. And that's something that we probably can all agree on, right? There's a lot happening in the world right now. So we are carrying a lot of that emotional and kind of intellectual and academic thought in our brain. We're also dealing with a lot that's happening in our classroom. I'm hearing more and more and more that bothersome behavior is just increasing in classrooms. Communication with families has grown really difficult right now. So those are the top things that I'm hearing from teachers around the world that are the most difficult, right? Increased hard behavior in the classroom, increased difficulty with families, increased miscommunication between colleagues across generations, right? So as I'm hearing that from you and developing this class for you, I'm inspired by a person that I follow on Instagram, and the comment and the kind of the thought was that self-care isn't optional, and it's not possible without first experiencing self-compassion. like coming to the space where you believe that you deserve it, right? So that's something that I'd like for us to just kind of keep in our mind as we go through today. The connection between self-compassion and self-care, and do they go together? Which comes first, right? Okay. So we're probably all in agreement that teachers and educators are beyond stressed. Stress is the most common reason for teachers leaving the profession, 2 times more than insufficient pay, right? And this research predates the pandemic, right? There's a high level of burnout. There's a high level of fatigue. There's a high level of anxiety and worry. Am I keeping children in my care safe from outside harm? Am I keeping them safe from themselves and from each other? Right? Am I teaching into skills that I see are lagging? Are their needs being met? And what more can I do to help children learn to meet their needs for themselves? And what can I do to support them in getting those needs met? Right? That kind of thought process for not just 1 or 2 or 3 students, but an entire classroom can really lead to a high level of burnout and fatigue and anxiety on the part of us as educators, right? There are higher sociemo needs in classrooms, and sociemo is a code for social emotional. I call the books that I write my social stories sociemo books because they're social emotional in nature. I'm hearing from teachers around the world and school leaders around the world that they notice that there are higher social emotional needs and greater um, lagging skills in managing big emotions on the part of students and in the part of adults. We're having a harder time managing our big emotions. We're having a harder time communicating when emotions are running high. So, with that in mind, I'm glad you're here with me today. Okay, so going back to my story of epic fail, but I do appreciate you, teachers. I do appreciate you, colleagues, because look, here's a pile of stuff. Here's a pile of chocolate and herbal teas and bath salts and maybe even Starbucks cards. Yay, right? Okay. And that's lovely. Absolutely. And it doesn't stop there, right? We can receive all the chocolates and the herbal tea and the bath salts and the Starbucks cards. We can receive a big pile of that. And do we feel that that is a clear expression of gratitude? Is it a clear indicator that I can use this to care for myself, right? Is this something that works for me so that I feel I can come back to school, I can come back to work the next day refreshed and rejuvenated, feeling joy and gratitude, like my work is purposeful and that I'm making a difference in the world? Well, that's all good. However, let's think about what I'm hearing that teachers and educators say that they really, really need. I'm hearing so often that I'm tired, I'm just bone tired, right? Sleep. Teachers really need sleep, right? It's hard to go to sleep when your mind is going and going and going about a particular child or a particular family or a collection of children, collection of families. Sleep is avoiding many of us, right? And we need it. It's one of our basic human needs is to get rest, right? Another thing that teachers really need is to feel safe and supported at work, right? Do people understand me? Do people value the work that I offer? And is there a place for me to put my skills and my abilities in action? Am I making a difference in the world? Teachers also are requesting permission to only work their contracted hours without feeling guilt, right? How many of you who are taking this webinar right now are making materials for your classroom while you're listening? Am I right? So often that happens. And sure, we could say, well, that's part of the job. That's what you're getting into when you signed up for it. Maybe. And how can we manage the balance between what we do at work and what we do at home? what we do to contribute to my classroom and my community of children and families that I serve during the day, and what do I do to serve my family and myself so that I can do this at the highest caliber, right? So, permission to only work our contracted hours without feeling a sense of guilt, right? So much less piled on our plates. I hear that so often, that the requirements are growing and growing and growing. Can we take a look at what is necessary for the job, and is it realistic to do during the time that you have in your job, in your work, at school? Yes, we absolutely appreciate and are very thankful for the gifts. But how do I get more sleep? How can I feel more safe and supported at work? How can I have clear boundaries about when I'm finished with the work that I do during the day? How can I be clear and have realistic expectations of what is expected of me and what I expect of others? Yeah. So, so say you can offer or advocate for these things, right? There's a place to consider, how do you advocate for a reasonable list on your list of things to do? How do you advocate for a realistic balance between life and work and more, right? How can you advocate for yourself? And as a school leader, how can you be mindful of that? Connect with the people that you lead and find out, how can I advocate for more of that for you, or alongside you, actually. So think about what you're doing right now, either as a school leader, or maybe you're a lead teacher in a classroom, or you're an assistant teacher in a classroom, or you're a support staff. Whatever role you have at school, what are you doing now? And how do you, how do you role model that to other people, right? I have a clear example that I'd like to share with you. There was an email that I got from a colleague who does similar work with a different organization as me. And I noticed in their email signature down at the bottom, it said something along the lines of, my work hours may be different than your work hours. Please, how did she put it? Like, the gist of it was, I don't expect for you to respond to this outside of your working hours. And that felt really good to me. And I totally said, hey, her name's Amy too. And I said, Amy, I'm copying that. She said, go right ahead. And it's helpful to let people know, okay, this is how I can role model boundaries. Or can you communicate let your families know, I answer emails between 3:45 and 4:15, or whatever the time is. And you can role model those kinds of boundaries to your families that you serve, and your colleagues and your leaders and the people that you lead. So consider, what are you doing as the role model? Are you setting those clear boundaries, or are you sending an email, or are you still at school at 7 or 8 o'clock at night? Do you feel seen yet? Been there. Okay. What are you doing now to radiate and to activate and to inspire, right? How does what you role model influence others and give others permission to do the same? When others see us committing to self-compassion, believing that we deserve self-care, and then doing the thing that is care for self, right? That radiates and it activates others to do the same. It inspires others to do the same. And they see that, you see this as important. I can do the same. It might look different, but we can role model and inspire each other in that way. Now, the different types of self-care include what? So your mind and your body and your spirit. And there's probably a few more. So think about, what do you do to care for your mind? And that could be reading new things. It could be reading fiction. It could be thinking or going and learning a new skill or taking a class? Or what do you do to activate and to care for your mind, right? Now let's talk about your body. What are you doing to care for your body, right? Is it really good tea that is delicious to you, or water, or a very long hot bath? That's one of the things that I love. So what is it that you do to take care of your body? And then your spirit. What are you doing to care for your spirit? Is it getting out into the community with like-minded people? Is it getting out and putting your hands right in the dirt into your garden? Going for a nature bath in a forested area? Going to the beach? Putting on headphones and listening to waves? What do you do to care for your own spirit? And then the following question is, well, what are you committed to doing? Right? Yeah, I really love going to the beach. That fills my spirit, it fills my mind and my body. And I live far away from the beach, so I don't get there as much as I want to. But if I'm committed to that, can I get creative? Can I put on my earphones and listen to the sound of ocean? Right? Can I turn on a YouTube channel with like the ocean waves? Right? How can I get creative? If there's some reason that I can't get to the beach, how can I bring the beach to me? Right? That's just one example. Okay, so with all that percolating in our mind right now, we're ready for our first prompt. So this one is painting. So if you need to go and get your art supplies, go do that thing. So if it's watercolor paper, if you have watercolors, then do you have the right paper? Do you have watercolors? Do you have paintbrushes? Do you have water? Do you have space? Right? Is your space prepared to do the painting? So take some time now, go get those things, and come on back. The prompt is this. So the first question to consider is, what kind of adult do you want your child or your students to become? And that's a simple question that could be really big, right? What kind of person or people do you imagine the children that we serve growing up to be? How are they going to change the world? How are they going to be the full expression of who they're supposed to be? And what does that look like? Right? So that's one question to consider. Now, the next question to consider is, what do you want your children or your students to see as their role model as they look at you? What do you want to radiate and inspire to them, to the children? Do you want them to see you actively taking deep breaths, or actively drinking your water, or actively stretching? What is it that you want them to see you doing as a role model for their own self-care and their own self-compassion? And then the third piece that goes along with this is, write somewhere on the page how you do this already, right? So feel free to write around the edges or write on a separate piece of paper that goes along with this painting prompt, okay? Know that whatever you do is perfect. There's no expected way that this is supposed to look, because the process is where all the magic happens, not the final product. So go do the thing, take your time. I would recommend giving yourself at least 10 or 15 minutes for this. It takes some time to get into the flow of a modality that if you tend to paint a lot, you're going to get into that flow a little faster. And if you don't, it might take a little bit longer. So give yourself permission and give yourself the gift of time to dive into this. Okay. So at least 10 minutes, 15, maybe 20. Okay. So do that thing. When you're finished and when you're ready, come on back. Okay, so now that you're back, your painting's drying over here, you've got your writing. Now I'm going to ask you to write again. So in just a second, I want you to pause this recording again, go back to your workbook and write. What did you notice during that process? Did you notice that maybe you didn't want to do it? Or did you notice that it took you a little while to get into the flow? Did you notice that it looked different from what you expected? Did you notice that you had thoughts that came to mind that you weren't expecting? What are the surprises? What were you not surprised at? Right? So hit pause, time to write, and then when you're ready, we'll come on back. Okay, so here's drawing, the prompt of drawing. So welcome back. Here we go. Now we're diving into the drawing part of today's experience together. So for this prompt, simply paper and your favorite magic markers, gel pens, colored pencils, charcoal pencils, whatever, a pen, pencil, whatever kind of art supplies you want to use for drawing, that'll be fine. So go get those things and come on back. And when you're ready, here's what the prompt is for the drawing. So number one is your authentic superpower. What is that one thing that you give to the world that maybe others either don't know about or others do know about? Right? Do you have colleagues who come to you for ideas on helping children with big physical energy? Do you have colleagues coming to you for extra supplies because you have everything in your closet? Excuse me. Pardon. So, what is your superpower? What is your gift that you give to the world? Can you get any toddler to nap? Is that your superpower? Do you bring the best item to the potluck? Think about it. Think outside of what you might expect. What's your authentic superpower? And the next bonus, if you can add to this drawing some sort of haiku, which is, line of 5 syllables, 7 syllables is the second line, and then 5 syllables in the third line. That's kind of bonus, right? And then if you were to draw some sort of cape, right? Like your superpower cape, what would it look like? Right. And I watched The Incredibles, and you probably did too. And the little designer who said no capes. Okay, what if there were capes? And what would your superpower cape look like? Give that one a go. Just draw what kind of a cape shape and what would it look like? So take some time. Again, give yourself some time to get into the flow. And then the process is where the magic happens. And when you're ready, come on back. Okay, you're probably back now. So now, just like I do after every art experience, it's time to pause and write. So, what did you notice? Were there any surprises? No surprises. Were you surprised that you're pretty good at drawing a cape? Were you surprised that it was hard to articulate what your superpower is? Right? Did you go and ask some people? Did you know right away what is your superpower? Right? So pause now, write that down, and when you're ready, come on back. Okay, so now's the time. We've had some experiences, we've talked a lot, we've done some self-reflection, we've been writing, we've been drawing, we've been painting. So now's the time to take a full-on break, okay? So I invite you to completely pause, get away from the screen. I encourage you to put on some music, either in your room or on your headphones. Find some space where you can move your body and feel free to have your personal dance party. Time to move your body. Okay, go get some water, take some deep breaths, look outside, go wash your hands. And when you're ready, come on back. Now, Amy, why am I doing this? Can I just kind of get on with this? Well, you could. I would not recommend it, right? And there's a reason behind that. So when we move our body, we activate our full we activate our full sense, all of our senses into what it is that we're feeling here and now, right? So putting on some music and moving your body in a way that feels good, even for 5 minutes, for the length of one song. helps our body relax, helps our body regulate, and we can carry forward with a fresh and open, fresh perspective and an open mind. So even though this sounds like big fun and maybe you could skip it, don't skip it. It's super important. So go have your own dance party. And when you've danced, you've moved your body, you've stretched to the length of at least one song. So that's about 3 minutes, 20 seconds. That's the average length of a song, I think. It's what it used to be when I did college radio like forever ago. So do that time and come on back when you're ready. Okay, now we're back. Now it's time for collage. So if painting was your thing and it felt really good, yes. If drawing was your thing and it felt good, right on. And it may be that collage is your thing, all right? And if so, you're going to love this part. If collage is something new to you, give yourself a little bit of extra time to get into the process, okay? So here's the prompt. So what you're going to need in supplies is some paper, ideally some different color paper and different textures. If you don't have different color paper or different textures or fancy pretty papers, don't even worry about it. Regular paper, notebook paper, newspaper, copier paper, any kind of paper or fabrics or ribbons or grasses or petals, pieces of bark, etc. You can use anything to make a collage. A collage is just a collection of things either glued together or placed together, right? So know that you don't have to have the fancy materials to do some sort of collage, okay? Some people do the art of collage that's not permanent, where they place items on like a larger piece of cardboard or a piece of paper. Then they take a picture of it, and that's the final piece. And then they can put the stuff back where it belongs or recycle it or whatever. So full permission to have some artistic liberty and freedom in this process, okay? For all of them, but especially for this one. Okay, so collage, this is the prompt. So you've got your materials. Come on back. Here are the questions. So the first one is, what makes your heart soar? What is it that breathes life back into you when you're feeling so deflated and depleted, right? Is it the outdoors? Is it under a blanket with a good book? Is it cuddled up with your dog? Is it going on a hike? Is it going out dancing with friends? Is it going to see a music concert? Is it going to a community collection of people that are like-minded with you, right? What is it that makes your heart soar? And it's going to be different for every single person. So create some sort of collage that reflects that. Okay. Now, the next piece to consider in this process is to think about how does this make it, how does what makes your heart soar make its way into the classroom, into your home, into your happy spaces, right? So for example, being in the garden and digging in the dirt, it makes my heart soar. And sometimes I get into a place where I'm super busy and I'm distracted by all the things that I think that I have to do. And I find myself in a really grumpy mood and I realize, oh yeah, I have not been in my garden for a week or more. No wonder I'm grumpy at everybody. No wonder I feel like I'm making mistakes all over the place because I haven't gone to the place where my heart can soar. So I write myself a prescription to get out in the dirt and weed and rake and do whatever it is that needs to be done. And I leave feeling so much more elevated, right? So, where is the place that you go to elevate yourself, to find a place where your heart does soar? And how does that make it into the classroom? So, how does that gardening make its way into my own classroom? Seed planting. We're digging a hole in the garden. We're planting some plants. We're going and identifying different plants. We're crushing up some herbs and smelling them. Yep. Offering those experiences to children. So It might be that there are children who find, "Oh, this makes my heart soar too," right? So that's one example. So what is it that make your heart soar? Is it music? Is it art? Is it being with people? And how can you offer those experiences, and how does that make its way into your classroom environment, right? And then the following question, it's kind of like a little bonus to consider, is what's keeping you from doing that? What's keeping you from preparing your spaces with a little bit of you in mind? Yes, it is true. The environments we create are for children, first and foremost. And we remember we are also a part of that. We are there too. It's important for children to see us joyful, with our heart soaring, feeling happy about being where we are, right? So, how can you prepare your space with a little bit of you in mind, right? So, give yourself some time. Again, 10 minutes at least, 15, 20 minutes is best. Okay. And this is what I miss from doing these kinds of classes that are really art heavy. I miss being in the room with you guys and seeing what everyone is creating and listening to the process, because what almost always happens, y'all, is there's a kind of a buzz of talking that happens, right? And then at about minute 5 or so, it gets silent. Everyone's in their flow, and it goes and goes in almost silent, and there's some talking here and there, right? And then you could tell when people begin to finish, the sound begins to come up again, and there's a natural completion to the process, and usually that's at about 20 minutes. Okay, so give yourself that time to do that. Okay, and when you're finished, come on back. Okay, now you're back. Here's another time to pause and write. So, what did you notice from that process? Did you notice that it took you a little longer or not so long? Was it easy to drop into creating a collage? Did the answer come to you quickly about what makes your heart soar? What about how soar, as in soar, SOAR, not SORE? I just realized, oh, wait a minute. What makes your heart soar, not silly. Okay, so what makes your heart soar like an eagle? And how do you find, how does that make its way into your classroom experiences? How can you show children your joy in what you love too? Is it through a true story? Is it through an experience that you share? Right? So pause, write about that. What did you notice? Were there any surprises? Was there anything that you kind of an aha moment that you didn't expect? Right? Okay, so pause and write. And when you're finished, come on back. Okay, now it's time for us to put pen to paper or hands to keyboard and write. So this is the prompt. I want to tell you a story about someone that I have a huge artistic and professional crush on. Her name is Alice Lovelace. And Alice Lovelace is a performer, an artist, a storyteller, a writer, an activist, and an all-around incredible person that I've known for decades. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and this poem prompt I learned from her. And I was able to tell her just a few years ago, as I saw her at an event, and I was completely starstruck and a little bit nervous. And I told her, "Hey, Ms. Lovelace, I'd love to share a story with you about your poetry prompts." And she was really happy to hear. And she was really very excited that I was bringing this to educators. She created this process for artists, painters, writers, choreographers. So we're taking that and putting it out into the world of educators. So what you're doing right now is tapping into your inner artist, your inner painter, your inner writer, your inner collage maker. Okay. So Alice would be so proud of all of us. So I want to give her big shout out for creating this and giving me full permission to share this with the world. Okay. So here's how it goes. Okay. So the first line, you write 3 words that describe you, that describe who you are. Just 3 words. Boom, boom, boom. On the next line, you write 4 relationships that you hold: teacher, mentor, sister, wife, whatever. You see? Then on the next line, you write 3 things that you love. What are 3 things that you love? Next line, 3 things that you fear. Next line, 2 things that you could not live without. Next line, 2 causes that you would fight for. Next line, 2 secret gifts. The next line is your superpower. Remember, we came up with that just a little bit ago. And then the last line is 1 gift that you give to the world. Maybe people realize that you're giving it to the world, or maybe you don't realize that you're giving it to the world. But through this process, you can consider, what is that 1 gift that I give to the world? Is it your marinara? Is it your laugh? Is it your optimism? What is it? Okay, so we'll pause, give you some time to do this. Again, as much as possible, if you can do this without interruption and you can get to the quiet place, I recommend in doing this process that you don't take too much time on this one, right? So you're giving yourself a lot of time to drop into the artistic creation process in the other prompts. But for this one, I recommend don't think about it too much. What are the first 3 words that come to your mind to describe you? The 3 things that you love. What are the first 3 things that come to your mind? And write those on paper. So this one, don't take too much time on. And when you're finished, come on back. Okay, now you're back. Pause and write. What did you notice? Were there any surprises? Especially if you were writing things down right away without thinking about them too much. Like, oh, wow, that's what I wrote. Oh, that's what I think. Interesting. Now, here's some kind of, so pause and write. And when you're ready to come on back, and I'll tell you how you could use this in your classroom. All right. So when you're ready, come on back. Okay, now if you're back, here's the bonus piece that I wanted to tell you how you could use this in your classroom. Okay, so you've already gone through the process, and now imagine if you talked to children about this. Right, I've used this process with children who, gosh, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, elementary students love this. Right, and so if they could write it themselves, and if they don't write yet, you can ask them kind of interview style and write their poem for them, right? Great present to send home at the end of a school year or something. So imagine, I'm thinking of a time when I was working with a primary classroom, children 3 to 6 years old, and I invited whoever wanted to come to this gathering, and there was a collection of very young children all the way to our kindergarten age children. And I asked the question, what are 3 words that you would use to describe you? And then you share it in a way that's age appropriate and in a way that they can understand. And it's fascinating to hear what they say about themselves, right? So you can have somebody, notating that down. But what the magic is to hear how they would describe themselves. Then, what are 4 relationships that you hold? So you explain what a relationship is, give some examples, maybe talk more about that, and then hear what they would say, what kind of relationships they hold, right? And then things you love, things you fear, and things you couldn't live without, things you would fight for. So this line, in my experience, is a place to talk about justice. right? So you choose the words that would be appropriate for the children that you work with, the age group that you work with. And maybe you change the language a little bit to help them understand more clearly, like, what is it that you believe in? What is it that is really important to you? Right? So you'll hear from children, two causes that I believe in or that I fully support are taking care of puppies. I remember a child said that and I welled up. Yeah, I was not expecting that. And what brought that emotion up in me was that child's 100% belief and his earnest dedication to animals. And it was completely honest and pure. And it was just a beautiful moment. So check it out. This is something that you could bring back to your classroom as well. Right. It's kind of a little bonus. Okay, we are humming right along. So, like I said, the recorded portion of this webinar is shorter because you're taking breaks to do the process itself. Okay, so this next one, get ready because you're going to need some space. So as much as you can move, whether you're standing up and moving full body, or if you're using your upper body or your lower body, whatever it is and whatever is your ability to move your body, do that thing, right? Please take care of yourself. You know, if you've got a back injury, make sure you're taking care of that. If your knee is a little funky, then take care of your knee. So as much as you can, we're going to do some movement, right? So find a space where you can move that works for you. And here is the prompt. So you've got your Alice Lovelace poem. You got it right there, right? Circle 3 words that kind of come up on the page for you, right? And those are going to be, don't think about it too much. Just look at it and notice 3 words that like your eye is drawn to and circle them. So you got 3 words. So go ahead and do that part. Okay, next is to create a gesture for each of those words. So for example, if I had the words joyful, sister, and nap time, because that's my superpower, I can help any kid go to sleep, then I'm going to create a gesture for each of those words. So it might be this. So there you go. Those are my 3 gestures. Then you string them together, right, to make a movement sentence. So what was it again? Was it this? So I've just made a movement sentence. I just choreographed a movement sentence, and you can do it too, right? So circle 3 words, come up with a gesture for each word. Doesn't have to be complicated, super simple. And then string them together. Boom, boom, boom. Feel free to, if you're feeling bold and feeling brave and excited about that, you can take this movement sentence and really play around with it. So you can do it this way and then go opposite. I mean, take it backwards, take it on a diagonal, right? Turn it, teach somebody else to do it with a different body part. There's so many different things that you can do with this movement sentence. So if you're somebody who moves a lot or who loves to dance or who is a choreographer yourself, then this is the place where you can really actively have fun with it. All right. So be bold and be brave. If you've never done something like this before, give yourself permission to try it this one time. All right. Activating your body in a full body way really integrates new information, new insight, new perspective, right? So it helps deepen and more fully root all of the self-reflection that you've been doing through this entire webinar. So I believe this is like a great way to button up things. Okay, so do that thing. Bonus extra credit for me if you want to share it with me. So if you want to take a video of it and send it to me, oh my gosh, that would make me so happy. Now this process, the circling 3 words, coming up with a gesture, movement sentence, This is a process that was created by a choreographer I've worked with in Atlanta also, and her name is Celeste Miller. So I want to give credit where credit is due to Celeste for creating this process. Okay, so go do that thing, warm up, move it, film it, send it. And when you're ready, come on back and we'll carry on. Okay, so you've done that. Maybe you're a little sweaty now, maybe not so much, but now it's time to pause and write about that process. What did you notice? Did you notice discomfort? Did you notice hesitancy? Did you notice excitement? Did you notice that your family or your colleagues were looking at you and asking, what are you doing? Aren't you supposed to be taking a webinar? What did you say? So take a pause and write down your thoughts about that process itself. And when you're ready, come on back. All right. Wow, this went really quickly, huh? So now what? Right? So moving on from all of these different experiences that we've had, what are we going to do with that? So there are three words that I invite you to consider moving forward. So one is to consider motivate, right? Motivation of yourself and radiating to others, right? What did you learn today that you didn't expect to learn? What experience did you have that you weren't expecting? Right? Next is inspire, right? How are you going to share something that you learned today with others, right? So, your experience, how are you going to share that with others? In that process of sharing with others is another way that we can help ourselves recall new perspectives, new ideas, and new ways of thinking in a much more successful way. If we put it into action and we share or we teach somebody about it as soon as possible, right? So don't wait a month or two to tell others about it. Okay. Next is activate. So we've motivated, we've inspired. Now we're going to activate. What is your next plan of action? What is it that you plan to do or put into place in the next few weeks, inspired by what you created today, the answers to the questions that I posed for you today? It was a lot of questions. I know, a lot of questions. So I do hope that you gave yourself full time to immerse yourself in those questions. You have this recording, so full permission to go back and do the process again. What's really interesting, y'all, is if you wait a month or so and you come back and you do the different prompts and the different art experiences again and notice the difference. Like it might be different. The beginning of the school year is going to look a little different than maybe the end of the school year. All right. So that's all for our webinar today. I wanted to show you books that I have available. I call them SOSIMO books, so social emotional books. They're social stories that I've written for children. Wow, That's a Big Emotion is about managing big emotions and self-regulation. Hey Friend, Wanna Play is the social skill of asking others to join and play, how to invite, how to ask if you could play. What does no feel like? What does yes feel like? That kind of thing, which is similar to the consent book. Consent, what is that anyway? So that's a book about consent. How do you ask? When do you ask? What does it look like? What does a yes sound like? What does a no sound like? Can someone change their mind? All of the elements that are around consent. And consent is much more than hugs and kisses. It's about all sorts of things. So consent, what is that anyway? It's one of my favorites. And then Rude, Mean, and Bully, what is that? Is a book about just that. What's the difference between something that is rude, something that is mean, and what is bully? What is a bully type behavior? What does that look like? Which is much more complicated than maybe you think. What's the role of an upstander? And how can we all be inspired to be an upstander? I stand up for others when their voice is shaky. I know how and when to go get help if necessary, right? So really, the upstander is the star of that book. All right, so that's that one. And the last one I have for you, and on the heels of the class and the content that we've covered today in this webinar, I really recommend checking this out. So the Spark is a creative adventure for teachers. It's a journal, a guided journal for educators, um, based on the years of conversations that I've had with school leaders and teachers and support staff, assistant teachers around the world. I was answering the same questions. I was sharing the same tools. And I thought, maybe I should just put it in a book so people can do this on their own. So it's a guided journal for you with it's packed with tools. It's packed with some of the questions that we talked about today and more. So you can find those on my website. There's a button that says books. So you can click there and that'll take you to Amazon, or you can reach out to me and I can get you an author copy for less than on Amazon. But feel free to help yourself as you wish. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. I appreciate you giving yourself the time and the space to get a little vulnerable, to be brave, to be vulnerageous. Many of the prompts maybe were big asks for you. So way to go. I'm proud of you for stepping into what might have been uncomfortable, or maybe you didn't want to do, or maybe you were really excited to do, right? Okay, so thank you for doing that. I'm honored to share this time in this space with you. Here are the places where you can find and follow me on Instagram or Facebook. My email, amywilliamsacademy@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to me. Part of what you get from me by taking my webinars is access to me. So if there's something, a question that you had based on what we talked about today, or if you want to share something, I would love to see pictures of what you created or the video of your movement. Would love to see that. Please send it my way. I'd be honored to check it out and to share any additional information that you may need to support your growth and your work with children. All right. So until next time, I hope you have a beautiful evening, a beautiful afternoon, and we'll see you at the next one.